In this chapter, we're going to look at the ways in which PHP makes choices. We're going to write some scripts in which PHP will decide whether to go one way or another way within the script, depending on whether certain conditions are met or whether they're not. This will allow our scripts to be more flexible and allow for multiple outcomes depending on the data which is input. So first of all, we're going to look at the basic if statements in this movie, and we're also going to look at the conditional operators, which allow us to define the conditions whereby the if statements will choose one path or another within the script. We're going to look at logical operators, which will allow us to pair two or more conditions and allow the PHP script to only take one path if both are true or if either are true, and so on. We're going to look at else and elseif clauses. These allow for other clauses if the principal if statement is not true. We're going to look at switch statements, which is another way of making choices in PHP, and the other keywords that go along with switch statements. And finally, we're going to look at the ternary operator, which is a very concise way of expressing a conditional and making a choice within a PHP script. So let's get right in and write our first conditional PHP script. As always, we open our PHP tag, and let's define a variable called num with the value 7. Now here's how we use a conditional. We use the if statement, and then we use regular brackets, the regular round brackets. You'll find them on the 9 and 0 keys. And then we put our condition inside. So we're going to say if the variable num, then we're going to use a little symbol you may or may not have seen before, and this is the greater than symbol. We're going to put the number 5 in and close the bracket, and this here is our condition. So if this condition, being the variable num, the value of the variable num being greater than 5, if that condition is true, then PHP will want to carry out another statement. So in this case, let's say echo num is more than 5. Let's close our PHP script, and we'll save this into examples as conditional. Now, let's take a look at our browser, make sure the script works. As always, we use localhost to get to the right place. And as we can see, the answer has come out as we expected. Num is more than 5. Now, if we wanted to enclose more than one statement within the conditional here, we could use curly brackets like so. This means that anything that falls within these curly brackets is to be carried out if this statement is true. It's usually a good idea to indent. Now, whatever statement we put afterwards is going to be evaluated whether or not the condition was true. So in this example, let's save that. In this example, let's say the condition wasn't true. Let's say num was 2. We'll save that again. And let's take a look at what happens here. As we can see, this gets printed out anyway, is the only text that's echoed to the browser. The reason for that is that this condition is checked or evaluated, and in this case it evaluates to false because 2 is not greater than 5, and so this line, whatever comes between these curly brackets, is ignored, and the PHP will proceed to the next line, which is this line, and carry out only this line. Now, let's take a look at our condition, the operator that we used here. So far, we've only used the greater than operator. There are quite a number of different operators, however. There is also the equals operator. Now, this may look a little strange. It may look like I've made a mistake here. Why have I typed the equal sign twice? Well, as we learnt before, this sign in PHP and a lot of other programming languages is not considered an equal sign on its own. This is the is set to sign. That's because what it does is it sets the value of the variable to the left to the value on the right. If we want to compare two values and see if they're identical, then we have to use a double sign here, which is the equal sign. Let's see what would happen if we simply used the is set to sign. I'm going to add another line here to make sure it reads out the value of num. Now, to look at this, if we were just to look at it and use our common sense, it would look like this will never get evaluated because this statement is not going to be true. However, we have to think a little differently in this case. Num is more than 5, and it's printed out the number 5. Now, if we look back at our PHP script, we can see that apparently it evaluated this expression as true. Now, how can this be? Well, the answer is that if we use the isSetTo variable operator, then PHP simply sets num to 5 and then evaluates the whole statement as true, even though it's within a conditional. So we must always remember, if we're going to use this equal sign as a comparison operator, then we must make sure to use the right format, which is the double sign. Otherwise, PHP is going to interpret it as the isSetTo sign, and we're going to end up with no end of trouble. This is a mistake that I've made so many times in the past, so if you find yourself making it a few times, then you're in company. Let's have a look at some more comparison operators. We've seen the is greater than, we've seen the equals, and we've seen the is less than, which is similar to the is greater than, but the other way around. There's also is less than or equal to. So say if the figure was, say if num was 5, then in this case, this condition will be true. However, if we simply use the is less than, then it will be looking for a number less than 5, and so the condition would evaluate to false. We also have, of course, the greater than or equal sign. And finally, we have the unequal sign. This will only evaluate true when num is not equal to 5.